Resh Ayin Vav, he mentions that we're going to work on what happens when you make up a gam in the letter Yud, which is the Kriya Shema. And that to say, like in some shuls where they have uh, a synagogue where you have lots of different kinds of people and they have an early davening. A lot of people will mess this up because they'll say Shriya Shema and that's it. But if it actually doesn't count, if you say it at the wrong time, I don't know if it counts. Maybe it counts. Maybe somebody has a cheshbon that counts. I don't know. Anyway, let's look over at number Lamed Hey in the Rav. Just look at the Rav, and we'll try to figure out what goes on. If you want it, you made a mistake here. So he says the tikach os hey achron the bottom. So you start at the bottom. So the concentration here is that you're going to build from the bottom to the top. Then he says im os vav. So you make a yichud. So everything the his order is for this has to come from the bottom and connect the hey to the vav. L'remos elis chavros amalchus im zeranpen. He said shenis chavra for the alos man. So now he also tells us this is that the reason for coming together is to plead for more, is to bring it up higher. L'malo la'aba ve'ima. So he says, Oz the Chabad B'Shnei Osius Yak Zuchim Zu. So now you put those two letters together, and now you finally gotten up to the top. The Ramos El Chiber Abba B'Ima, and etc. etc. That's really the whole way I saw it. That's the whole idea. Now he mentions also that this comes to the gematria of the word kale. Or let's look at number Memches. It's the easiest way to see it. That's it. He said Memches says first you start with the hey. The hey goes to the vav. And then the hey and the vav, they send a man up to the yud and the k. It makes a yichud over there. So if you add those up, they come to the gematria 31. Now he says that 31, he goes on to say, V'hu sod shem yud yud aleph yud. Now here he says this is a name, a four-letter name by itself, which is gematria 31. And we know that it's contained in the vowels of sag. Now, he doesn't say anything more about it. He says that he's going to be getting into it later. The most important part that I want to say now is for a tikkun for ourselves, and he mentions later, as we see, and we're going to see, he says that at Kriya Shema Lamita, at the Vidui over there is a place for this. So that's over there. But this could be, what I was thinking is that could be the Kavanah as you go into Kriya Shema in general to join those things. It might be in the Rishash Siddur even, I don't know. I got to look at it more closely. Now, the next one is at the beginning, the tikkun of the Pagama of the Hey Rishona. So how does this work? So I switched us over to number Nun Tes on the next page. Let me get this out here. We can see it. It is the Chaber Shnega Osius Yak. So this one starts with, now here we're talking about tefillin. So the first thing you have to do, so apparently it's a stimulation from up above. Now it doesn't say what causes the yichud of Abba Ve'ima. So I'm wondering if he means to say that this is a yichud tadiri, or and so therefore there's always something coming towards zun, or he means that actually by us having this kavana, it also causes this to happen. I think that's a possibility. Also, I could think of that. So he says. So what they're trying to do here is to try to get together to bring mochin to zun. So number Samad Gimel, he says, so Ola Hey Achrona. So then you take the first you make the two Yud K's. Mischabram im Vav, and you put the lower Hey with the Vav. So this is how it starts. First you have from up above. Then you have a yichud of the Hey going to the Vav, moving up. Hey the Alos Man, and they're number Samach Vav to bring up Man. And then number ayin, your red is hey ilah mischavrim os vav. And then he says that what happens is, so you have this process. This is what the kavanah should be when you're going to say the put on tefillin. First, you're going to make a yichud of yak. Then you're going to start raising up the relationship of zun. First, the hey up to the vav. And the reason why they do this is because now they're going to bring up man. So that's what aroused my question of what brought the shepherd down in the first place. So he says El Abba Be'iba, so they should make a yichud, and then your red is the hey Yilor. So then he says what happens like this again. The kavana is that you're putting the yak together. then you're putting the hay together with the vav, they're sending up man, and this brings down the first hay. Your reddish hay ilor mischavrim in oz vav, and so now you have this entering into Zer Anpin. So going on from Ayin Malaf is Shuchuk Inyan Kinesis, and that's a Chod Yisod the Imatok Zer Anpin. So that's that idea, and he says this is also comes from the word hevel. Wow. Okay, I had some trouble on my end as well. So here's an interesting point as far as the film is concerned. Um, he says over here that this is also part of Sag, because if you add up the letters that come with it, which are contained by pay number pay dalit, and so this is the concise way of saying the whole idea. You're putting the yak together, then you're putting the hay to the vav, and then you're bringing the upper hay down into the vav, which is the ekanisa of the nai of ima into zeranpin. Now that's a big basic formula that he's telling us how it is that and why we're dealing with Sag. We don't really, he doesn't really mention it. So then let's go to the next one. He says, it's Geneged Pam Havav, which represents the tzitzit. Geneged Pam Pagam Vav Shal Havayah. He says, let's look at number tzadi, I guess. The Chaver the yak. So you start out by putting yak together again. Shahim Abu Ve'ima. So you bring them together. Im vav shuhu zer anpin. And so you put it together with the vav, which is zer anpin. Lana aslo or makif, and this becomes a makif shuhu hatalis. So now you went to what? He's going to show it to us at the bottom a little bit. He said number tzadi vav. He said the chaver oz vav im he achrona. Then you put that together with the final hey. And he said v'ku remish and nos and nezal the no bechinas osam atzitzit. So this is the idea that you're really starting from the top, and then you're coming down and you're joining everything together, and ultimately you're dealing with a makif, he says. And he says down on number, let me see, where did I see that? So he's, is that it? On number Kof Aleph, is that the formula? It's Yaakov Vovke. Is that it? Yaakov Vovke, Hare Lamed Base. So if you add those up, that is Yak. Then Yak makes a Hebrew with the Vav, and then the Vav makes a Hebrew with the Hay, and finally you're bringing those Makif that came from the first onto the Vav, and then the Vav brings it over to the final K. And that's a Kabbalah there. He says this comes to Gematria of Lev, which is the number of the tzitzis. Now exactly, what those Ramazim are there, I don't really know. He doesn't tell us. He doesn't tell us why, what's the significance of Sag, and so on and so forth. Maybe we could figure it out someplace else. So then here's the final hay. So he said number Kof Ches says La'alos Os Vav, so Im Hey Rishonim. So the idea that here we're going to we haven't done anything with the final hay. He says the first thing is that the Zeranpin moves up to Bina. Then the Olim Yachad Os Hey Rishonim Os Vav El Os Yud. So what happens here? The Hey Rishona, which has the Vav attached to it. This then goes over to the Os Yud. So now you worked your way from the Vav to the Hey, now to the Yud. And now you have a Yaakov, a complete Yaakov. Let's see, where are we? Where was it? Shlosh Osius Aniskarim, but the common key Hebrew Zeh who gematria chen. I think I'm like, hey, Achrona in Shlosh Osius. So you put the whole things together, and basically what you have is a Havayah backwards. And that's Vav K, or you could look at this way. Vav K, that is the Vav goes to the first K. and then the Vav K goes to the Yud, and then you also attach the Hey to those, and there you got the combination that makes the world go round. And he says this is the number 58, Chen. Exactly how that's used and what it means, not clear there. So let's go on since we're doing this. Let's see, we'll work at the Sefer that's new. Then when we come back, Pratim, the Tikkun, the Begamim, and now. So here's some more details. Seeing as Vihine, Makom Gavanas Elo. We did that one already, right? I'm sorry. We did that one already. We're on page Reish Pei Dalet. Sorry. Reish Pei Dalet says Gavanas the Kavod Kriya Shema Shalamita. What's playing at Kriya Shema Shalamita? Va'amnam gam be'esh gevar shachvacha al mitascha belayla. So now when you go to lie down, you're going to go to sleep. Because part of that ceremony is saying a vidui kenizgar and slated the bekoma. Be'amracha, so you say im chatasi the v'necha v'gamdecha ba'os yud, and there is a part in there that has these words in it, yud rishon shalavaya, and then you would use that kavana, the kavana for the yud that we talked about. As the kavan al betul kriya shema, so then we'd have the kavana, the fact that we forgot the kriya shema, the kavan al yichud shalo, and then you'd have this kavana. V'chein b'shar arba osios, we have the same thing with the rest of the letters too. So he says, number kuf lamed bet, he says, let's look at just reading the Tivik Kavanos. Yesh zaman nosif shabo, shabo yesh the kavan b'kol arba yichudim in his current. Today the sakim call masha pagam ba'arba begamis, so that we could be meticulous in all of the four different things, those things and kriya shema, tefillah. So shatelech lishon. So now you go to sleep. Amitas go b'layla chavitikbrach b'kriya shema shalamita. The tomer havidui. Now you're in the vidui part of that. Sheyesh the omer kodem mashina, because you should make a vidui before you go to sleep. But vidui, you never have a kriya shema in the vidui that we're talking about here in kriya shema shalamita. Mizvada ramasha pagam ba'arba ozia shem Havayah. So then we go through that in those names. But the kain mizvada ramasha pagam ba'oz yud rishon shem Havayah. So when you make a pagam in this letter yud, as you cover his father's al pagam shel bit mitzvahs kriya shema. But the kavan the sakin is pagam shel bit mitzvahs kriya shema. The mitzvahs kriya shema. So therefore we do that at that time. So we have now the formula for being able to make that tikkun. Sheba who began with the mitzvahs tefillin. Az yikaven the sakta Rabbi Yedecha Kavonas the yichud shach the mitzvahs tefillin. So when you get concerned about that, Sheba began the mitzvah tzitzis. You haven't decided that Rabbi Yedecha Kavonas the yichud the sheyechs the mitzvah tzitzis. So do it like that. That right there too. Also, the Olahei Achron, the final Hey, Shalavai, just went through the fact that we say this on all these formulas apply over there. Shibahu Hapagam, the mitzvahs tefillah, Yikam the Sakta, Ayedecha Kavanas Yichah, the Sheyach, the mitzvahs tefillah. Number Kuf Lamed Zayin, up on the top. Here we go. He says, Gam. So what's going on here? When you make that bracha, the kaven b'rosh tevos. This is a simple kavana. You should have in mind that the first letters of each word of lamed are lamed and beis with tzitzis. So he says the hisatev is lamed and the tzitzis has got a beis in it. They got 32 again. For who so lamed beis the is chochma. So once again, we're not saying exactly how those 32 nesivas go, but we have, in other words, how they form, what they're doing. What is the shaykhs over here? Not sure 100%, but let's look over at the Kuf Lamed Zayin in the Tivik Kavanos, down at the bottom of the page. He says, Yeshna Kavana Anosefis, Kashet Tavarak Lisata Betzitzis, As the Kavan Ki Roshi Tavis Lisata Betzitzis, Haim Lamed Beis. So so you could do that very easily just by saying the bracha. And the bracha is really indicating there's a lamed base over here. Shachem b'kol kanash yesh shmona chutim uba arba kanfos yachdad ein lamed base chutim. So you see that. Now one more, v'zechav aromas the so lamed base the sifas chochma. So there's also something there because it has to do, I guess, with the paths of the flow of this light. Now we're at number Kuf Mem Aleph, which is another one. B'dakia Adam Sark lehistakel b'tzitzios because shav and rega. Now this is a little bit harder. This one. He says it's that it seems to be. So he says that it's a person needs to constantly be looking at his tzitzis, which I'm not sure how you do that constantly, but okay. He said because the pasuk says you have to see them. So this is for a great purpose. Excuse me, so for a person's spiritual being, so that they shouldn't be waiting for him something bad that's good that could cause him to sin. If his person is careful by looking at the tzitzit, and also you will achieve a tremendous goal. Now, what does he mean by this? I'm not sure. Kuf Mem Aleph in the Tivik Avonos. He says, Shitas Aravhi, Shaha'adim Tzark Lehistakel Betzitzias Bekol Shav Reged. Behind the Shaha'adim Tzark Lehistakel Tameh Betzitzias. So he says, Bahar Yedeshim Istakel Tameh Betzitzias, so because he's constantly looking at them, Lo Bezeto Elis Gedoylo Dishmaso Shalo Yizdamen Et Yada. Okay, we said it before. But the night is that and besides this, so he says, by looking at the tzitzis, he also protects himself from sin. So you're saying there's something else really bigger than that. But he doesn't say what it is. I guess the flow of words stopped at that point, whatever. So number Kuf Mem Vav, that's the next one. About kavanos is taklos yesh de kavanos. Now this is what I guess I was saying that look a little bit more difficult. He said there's two different kavanos you can have. Because the person who's looking at his tzitzis, be'ez tefillas chakras kriya shema at the time of chakra kriya b'dachayla k'she'omer pashas tzitzis. Sark l'kavod ba'ofen acher. He says there's a different kavana over there at the time he's saying the kriya shema. L'gamoshen nevoy v'sham b'bekom b'ezet Hashem. Avach hamistakel v'chem shelo b'zman at tefillah. Sark l'kavein kavana cheres. But if you're talking not at the time of tefillah, that's going to be explained. Well, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. Is that one after the next? It's this. The word ayin is a gematria 130. And this is what it is. It's a revuah of the name Ma. Kazeh Yud, so spelled out like this in a that is the Havayah Ma Yud K Vav Gov Yud K Vav K. So now you're looking at the tzitzis Yakavin Ki Haknaf, the word Kanaf, who so Ekye the Milui Hey. Now these are two different things. It's that I think one is that revuah, and then he said, well, let's see what else he says. So take away the pasha to 26. You should immediately gematria cow. You look to see what's left over there. You take 160. I don't see how that works out. Let's see. What do you say? Let's see if I get this wrong. Okay, so 152 minus 26 gives you what? Doesn't give you 130, does it? Does it? I don't know. It's not coming through to me. Anyway, look at it again. Ayin is the same gematria. So in other words, there's two ways to get here. One is the revuah of Ma, and the other one is the milui of Ekiyah, of Hayin. Keniskar. So you look at two different times. You do two times kal. Shehem shtei pamim ayin, then the gematria ras. B'zecha b'sod v'yarech Hashem ki sar v'ros ki al yedecha b'sar nizkar, which is double seeing hu haros v'tikavin al eser chavayit b'shutos shel chasadim v'gevuros she'olim v'gematria sar v'achar kach tikavin al asher. Okay, that's it. It got a little bit long there, so we didn't quite finish, and we'll get back to it because there's a lot of good stuff there. This is Mark Fleischman.